Hey everyone, I'm Jack.
And I'm Alex.
And in today's video, we'll be ranking the bosses of WB Montreal's Gotham Knights from worst to best. If you've checked out a bit of our channel, you'll know that the Arkham series is one of our personal favorites. Needless to say, when Gotham Knights was first announced in cryptic teasers on a secret website, we were completely tuned in. The Court of Owls, Arkham's great return, there was everything to be excited about. This excitement lasted for about a week, however. We and the collective world started losing faith in the title, beginning immediately with its underwhelming cinematic trailer reveal at DC Fandom. WB Montreal had done Arkham Origins, so we figured this secret game to be a sequel to Arkham Knight, although even with the reveal of the main cast being the Bat family instead of Batman in another universe outside the Arkhamverse, excitement was still running large among the Arkham community. Although, as the clock started ticking ever closer to release, the game began showing its true colors. Itself. Unsurprisingly, it was as bad as many had imagined it would be when it was revealed as an RPG with a forced artificial grind through a material upgrade system, like Destiny 2, Marvel's Avengers, or any other game that uses this formula. They're all bad. And let's get it out of the way and state the obvious, Gotham Knights is bad. Like, IGN gave it a below 7 bad. Even positive YouTube comments were outratioed to hell and back, rare in today's age of recency bias. It went from sad to comedic watching WB Montreal slowly shoot themselves in the foot with shocking gameplay reveals.
Red Hood's ranged attacks are a little louder. He fires non-lethal rounds that still do a lot of damage.
Sudden and not-so-secretive announcements on throwaway Discord servers about the game running at 30 frames per second on PS5, let's change that, running at a maximum of 30 frames per second on PS5 that's usually hovering around the no DS fix Blighttown mark, no counter system in combat, and a leaked plotline so horribly predictable and just poorly written it makes Arkham Knights look like The Godfather. Gotham Knights was going to be very bad, and we all knew it. And even though I've just gone on and on about how bad the game is, the experience was not. Well, it is god-awful alone, but with a friend it's just a lot more fun and the forced grind goes by much faster with 2 times the people available to do it at once. In turn, the overall game goes faster as well. And so, it's our pleasure to announce that Alex and I actually went through the entire game together, Alex as Red Hood and me as Nightwing. This made it way more enjoyable, and of the few things this game did get right, 1 was its multiplayer system, and 2 were its bosses. While the combat was simple and repetitive in design, out of all the Batman games, Gotham Knights has the best boss lineup, featuring a decent amount of them and all at least somewhat engaging, pointing out how well made they are considering how much of a chore the repetitive combat is in any other instance. Nonetheless, what was once the believed-to-be successor to Rocksteady's Arkham Knight is now but a miserable attempt at revolutionizing a perfectly designed formula, a game soon to be lost forever among the hundreds of other critic and market failures on the Xbox Game Pass and PS Plus. How do its bosses compare to the generally awful game they exist in? Let's find out.
Time has not been kind to Mr. Freeze. While a smash hit in Arkham City, WB Montreal has now crafted 2 Mr. Freeze fights of such abysmal quality that I shudder to imagine what they would create if they tried to make something bad on purpose. Whoever balanced his health is an asshole. We came into this fight supposedly 2 levels over the recommended max level, and it still took well over 10 minutes to beat him into submission. No matter how many non-lethal armor-piercing rounds I fired into his glass helmet, Victor seemed to be doing anything but dropping. The first time we used momentum abilities on him only to see the minuscule chip damage it did was absolutely shocking, perhaps the lone surprise in this predictably wretched nightmare of a game. I would also like to pose the question of what the hell is up with Mr. Freeze in this game. I've grown just as weary as anybody of how often people milk his sob story to make him sympathetic, but here he's just a motiveless psychopath. He's undoubtedly a self-insert for whoever designed the heroic travel challenges, very poor form for a writer. This is one of those fights that has phases broken up by environmental hazards. Not a bad idea if your game controls well. Unfortunately, controlling character movement in this game feels like trying to maneuver a rabid donkey on 6 tons of meth across a tightrope. It's absolutely comparable to piloting the Titans in past games. I'm deadly fucking serious. Jack and I both suffered numerous injuries at the hands of Victor's gizmos, courtesy of the awkward movement. All of these flaws coalesce into a final product as baffling as it is rotten. He even gives you a pitiful amount of XP for suffering through it. What a fucking bum. How fitting it is that the first boss we ever saw showcased was just as piss poor as it appeared in that ominous first look.
Because of the way we scheduled our videos, we have no idea if this one or the difficulty ranking will be out first. Why does it matter? Well, these two make up the bottom of this video and the top 2 spots in the other video. I can smell the skill issue comments brewing in the fiendish minds of our audience, even though it's pretty clear whoever was in charge of balancing enemies in this game either figured the numbers he thought fit were for an exchange rate, or the playtesters were masochists and probably like putting things up their butt. Manbat/Menbat, because there are many, make up this ranking, and even though the 3 that collectively make up Mission 8.1 are technically champions and the others aren't, they're all the same. There are 5 different Manbats in the main game, each with a flurry of claw swipes and supersonic booms. As most mini-bosses go, first it was a novelty, and by the millionth time you fight them, Manbat is about as frustrating as bosses come. The only thing he's missing is a health bar to make the ancient dragon piss its draws.
Just like every other villain in this game who isn't made of clay, Talia al Ghul suffers an unquantifiable downgrade from past video game showings. To put it in caveman language, she went from cool and hot to lame and ugly. Boo! Her presence throughout the game is confusing and sporadic, and I never once felt threatened by her. It is hard to feel foreboding when you're mostly thinking, I could probably beat her ass right here, right now. Hilariously enough, this sentiment was proved to be right on the money when she finally decided to square up by the Lazarus Pit. She is the twisted mirror of Mr. Freeze, with a health bar so fragile that we would occasionally stop attacking to mock her with emotes. After all, we need more than 30 seconds of footage to cover this segment now, don't we? She has 2 phases, both of which share the same talent for eating bullets about as well as any normal human would. She has a lengthy attack chain or 2, but if you spam circle and move away, she'll whiff every time. I even landed blows on her while she was attacking Jack, which looked rather funny. Just as we suspected, Talia the boss worked just as well as Talia the villain. That is to say, she sucks more than whoever was blowing Bruce while he killed himself. Probably Jason. 5 stars for the ending, by the way. Bravo, WB Montreal, for that astounding feat of storytelling. I kneel!
Finally, just a mini-boss. Basher and Blazer are easily the least criminal of any boss so far. They're just chillin'. Also, you're probably wondering why the gameplay in this one is of Red Hood and not Nightwing, and the reason is that I deleted my footage on accident, so Alex sent me his. We both recorded the same fights from our separate perspectives to save time and give different points of views for the 2 videos. Anyways, Basher is like a beefier version of a freak bulldozer, while Blazer is similar in strength but has a flaming kettlebell or mace instead. For me, Blazer was way harder to the point where I actually got knocked down by him in his solo bout, embarrassingly, although when both Basher and Blazer show up later again in our now deleted bomb diffusion chamber segment, it was rough. Took us about as long, if not longer, to do than Freeze. Still, this dynamic duo was a fun mini-boss, with their inherent difference in great character design, as is the case with every boss, handing them a decent spot.
Just as Talia comments after her humiliating defeat, Bruce trained his protégés well. Perhaps too well, considering what a sandbag he is here. Jack and I were about as shocked to see Bruce take a swim in the Lazarus Pit as we were to see the sunrise this morning, but neither of us predicted just how badly a stint in the Netherworld impacts combat ability. We had him stun-locked for about 80% of the fight, and whenever he did land a hit, it was negligible. He caught me in a command grab only to do about 15% of my health all said and done. It's broken up by these hilariously trite appeal to the emotions of the mind-controlled guy segments that are so common in media with any sort of brainwashing present. It's beyond me why anyone even bothers trying to brainwash people at this point if all your hard work can be undone by someone asking if they remember the good old days. Bruce Wayne is not treated kindly in this game between getting bitched by the Robins and killing himself in an iMovie explosion. It's hard to find much else to say in what should be a momentous encounter. It's not unpleasant gameplay-wise, but was very disappointing in a big picture sense.
If Mr. Freeze was our anti-power fantasy, Harley Quinn is our ultimate power fantasy. After learning that the side case files were scaled by an alien, like I seriously have no idea how the hell they fucked up that badly, we thought it best to only enter them extremely overleveled rather than just kind of overleveled. Although it ended up being a case of one bad apple not necessarily ruining the orchard, but giving it a bad rep. I think we would have been just fine had we fought Harley at level 22 or 23 instead of 27, but her relative health was actually pretty ideal. The fight itself is near flawless as well. What Alex and I both liked about Gotham Knight's case file bosses as compared to really any from the Arkham roster is how dynamic they were, with constant phase changes, new additions to movesets, even enemy padding was passable due to the small number of goons the bosses summoned. Harley's big gimmick is her agility. She easily evades 80% of the attacks thrown at her, and all of her attacks are red, whatever that means. But even though there are little to no flaws to Harley, she lacks the scale and spectacle all the remaining bosses share to varying degrees. Her only weapon is her hammer, and only change is the hammer gets electrically charged. The arena is constant and moveset changes only slightly, so even though Harley was very fun, the lack of grandiose puts her levels behind any of the top three.
Look, I'm as big a hater as anyone else when it comes to this game, but I'm fair. I'll toss it a bone when I see a chance. That is to say, the people who say this game has PS3 graphics are just bullshitters. Look at those fucking clay graphics and tell me it isn't crazy. You can see like individual atoms of the fluid practically. This game's take on Clayface is probably the best to date, as awesome as Arkham City Clayface was. He looks cool and all his fights are solid. Here you walk in on him filming what could be a generation-defining masterpiece of cinema, if only he realized that clay cameras do not in fact work. Actor-directors are taking on a big challenge though, so I understand it needing a little time to get the process down. This fight is a battle royale pretty much. You and any buddies you have with you versus an army of fodder and 3 clay faces. There's solid attack variety, mostly revolving around getting creative with the graded flooring, which gives him better ability to counter ranged attacks in his second incarnation, amusingly enough. It's really not that complicated, but it sure looks nice, and in a game like this, I'll take what I can get.
I like to joke that Gotham prisons give prisoners the key to their cell when they enter, but what the hell happened to get to this point? Did they give Freeze a whole laboratory and an orchestra of scientists? I think I'll just drop trying to apply logic to this game's non-essential storylines. Anyways, somehow between the time he was beaten to where he looked like Baron Harkonnen, slogging through a bunch of regulator crap, and now, Freeze has managed to build himself an entire lower body mech spider suit, like a cooler looking Citron or Spider Mastermind, at least in terms of the mecha part. I don't want to spark that debate. Due to a mixture of us being level 29, the recommended level being 23, and that Mecha Freeze was just properly balanced, he actually has less health than the initial Freeze boss we covered oh so long ago. Mechanically, it's not incredibly complex, definitely not as much as the first Freeze fight, but what it is creatively unique in a fun way. His suit has 4 front legs that are the only hitbox in the fight. Each leg is breakable with enough pressure, which prompts the second phase in a great cinematic. Having Alex's Red Hood was a blessing. At random intervals, Freeze will leave the arena and start firing off projectiles from a vantage point, meaning ranged attacks are your only hope. Having Alex there was really fun and greatly helpful in every fight. This was just the best example of it I could talk about. Because of the size of the arena and naturally good design of all of his attacks, you never feel cramped for space and can even no damage the fight if you really zone in. With one of the coolest fight-to-fight changes I've seen in a while, Mecha Freeze left a lasting impression on me and just barely falls short of the #1 spot.
Clayface was cool enough when it was as simple as beating up clones, but now he's a mega Clayface with 4 arms and can make spiky balls and sledgehammers and shit. I mean, he kinda always does that, but I'm a fan, what can I say? In a game where the gameplay is as mediocre as it is here, spectacle becomes one of the biggest determinants of quality, which this certainly delivers. I'm generally a fan of boss fights with setting and moveset changes that occur throughout, which lend a sense of dynamism to it that would be lacking if it was the same stuff the whole ways through. I was a fan of the Bat Cycle chase, even if it dragged on a bit too long for how mindless it felt from the lack of difficulty. The last phase looks awesome, and even if it's easy due to his melee-oriented attacks leaving him open to ranged fire, he's still a fairly enjoyable diamond in the rough. Not worth buying the game to experience, mind you, but better than the average boss in a Batman game by a significant margin.
Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed, at least a bit more than you did this game. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned for a slew of new videos these next few weeks with the many new games coming out in this period. That's all for now. Deuces.